Well, sit down, put your affairs aside, turn off notifications. Now I'm going to take your cozy, linear perception of time and flush it down the toilet. You've always been told that the future is hazy, that no one knows what tomorrow holds, that prediction is the domain of carnival charlatans, station fortune tellers, and city lunatics. You will be uncomfortable, you will be creepy, but most importantly, you will finally understand. The script of our reality was leaked online long before you were born. We begin a session of forced trepanation of your skepticism. Prophecy 1. The sinking of the Titanic is the laziest remake. We were all sold this story as the greatest tragedy and a chain of fateful accidents. An iceberg, a moonless night, an unsinkable ship, DiCaprio's tears to sad music. A perfect drama that no one could have foreseen. Now prepare for the coldest shower of your life. This is utter nonsense. 14 years before the disaster, when the Titanic's blueprints didn't even exist in project form, writer Morgan Robertson released the book Futility. In it, he wrote about a giant liner that was considered unsinkable. In the book, this ship, packed with rich people, collides with an iceberg on its starboard side in April in the North Atlantic, and it doesn't have enough lifeboats. And now the cherry on top of this cake of madness. In the book, the ship was called the Titan. Robertson didn't just guess, he literally spoiled the main disaster of the 20th century. This is not a coincidence, it's a bug in the matrix that we chose to ignore. Prophecy 2. Mark Twain and his cosmic Uber. Oh, Mark Twain, the cheerful, mustachioed man from the school curriculum, author of Tom Sawyer. We are used to thinking that writers are just humanitarians with a rich imagination who can't even tie their shoelaces without a beautiful metaphor. But Twain was a damn biological chronometer. He was born in 1835, the day Halley's Comet flew past Earth. And in old age, he declared, I came in with Halley's Comet and I expect to go out with it. The Almighty will not make a mistake. Sounds like a beautiful, pompous phrase for an obituary, but it's not. The comet returned 76 years later. Twain died the very next day after its appearance. He didn't have a premonition of death. He knew his train schedule. While you can't plan your weekend, this guy planned his death with an accuracy of 24 hours. Prophecy 3. Tamerlane's Tomb. Instructions for starting a massacre. Soviet atheists of the 1930s loved to laugh at superstitions. Ha ha. Ancient curses, spirits of war. What nonsense for uneducated savages. We are people of science. Reality hit them in the face on June 20th, 1941. Archaeologists opened Tamerlane's tomb in Samarkand, ignoring the inscription. Whoever opens the tomb will release the spirit of war, and a massacre will begin such as the world has never seen. 2 days later, on June 22nd, Hitler attacked the USSR. The bloodiest slaughter in human history began. A coincidence, let's say. But why then did the turning point in the Battle of Stalingrad happen exactly on the days when Tamerlane's skeleton was honorably returned to the mausoleum? This is a historical fact that screams at you. Don't press the red button, idiots. But humanity, like a capricious child, will certainly stick its fingers in the socket. Prophecy 4. Lincoln's Dream, a spoiler in his own head. Abraham Lincoln, the great liberator. We are used to the image of a wise politician in a top hat, but no one tells you that he was a mystic by necessity. 10 days before his death, he recorded a dream in his diary. He walks through the White House, hears crying, enters the East Room, and sees a coffin guarded by soldiers. In the dream, he asks who died. The soldier replies, the president. He was killed. A few days later, Lincoln went to the theater, where he was shot in the back of the head. His body was laid out for farewell in the East Room. He watched the trailer of his death, but didn't even realize that the ticket had already been bought. Prophecy 5. Alexis de Tocqueville and the Cold War. In 1840, the USA was an agrarian province with cowboys, and Russia was a serf empire with czars. There were no prerequisites for world domination for either. Europe was the center of the world. But the French philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville looked at the map and wrote, "There are two nations, the Russians and the Americans. Their paths are different, but one day they will hold in their hands the destinies of half the world." He predicted the bipolar world, the Iron Curtain, and the Cold War a century before. Oppenheimer even learned to pronounce the word atom. This is called geopolitical X-ray. Prophecy 6. Tesla's smartphone slapped Steve Jobs. Do you think Steve Jobs is a genius who gave us the iPhone? Cool down. Steve Jobs is just a good marketer in a black turtleneck. The true prophet was Nikola Tesla. In 1926, when radio receivers were the size of a grandmother's dresser, Tesla said, "In the future, we will see and hear each other instantly, regardless of distance, and the instrument for this will fit in a waistcoat pocket." He described video calls, mobile internet, and smartphones when your great-grandparents considered the telegraph the height of progress. Tesla didn't invent, he just remembered the future. He saw you scrolling through your feed in the toilet 100 years before you got there. Prophecy 7. Jules Verne and his engineering report. From the Earth to the Moon, a fun children's fantasy, right? The writer just pointed his finger at the sky, invented a big gun, and accidentally guessed right. That's complete nonsense. Verne didn't guess, he calculated. He wrote, "The crew will consist of 3 people. The ship's hull will be made of aluminum launched from Florida, landing in the ocean. NASA 100 years later. Crew of 3 people. Aluminum hull, launch from Florida, landing in the ocean." Verne was not a writer. He was an engineer who was born too early and was forced to disguise his blueprints as adventure novels. He calculated the Apollo flight on paper by candlelight, while modern engineers with supercomputers can't properly connect 2 cables. Prophecy 8. Wi-Fi and social isolation of 1909. We think that internet addiction, Zoom calls, and food delivery are problems of the 21st century, that we are unique in our digital loneliness. Sit down. In 1909, when people were still riding horses and dying of colds, E.M. Forster wrote the novella The Machine Stops. He described people sitting in identical concrete cells, never going outside, and communicating only through glowing round discs. They fear touch, hate live meetings, and receive food via pneumatic mail. Sound familiar? Welcome to 2020. Forster described your lockdown, remote work, and social distancing 110 years before anyone ate that bad. This is not fiction. This was a spoiler that no one wanted to read. Prophecy 9, Ray Bradbury and the Seashells. In the novel Fahrenheit 451, people wear radio seashells in their ears. The protagonist's wife doesn't hear her husband. She lives in an ocean of sounds, voices, and music. She is a zombie. Bradbury wrote this in 1953. Back then, headphones weighed half a kilogram. Today, you go outside and see millions of people with white shells in their ears, AirPods, who are cut off from reality. Bradbury didn't invent a gadget. He predicted the death of live communication. Prophecy 10. Credit card from 1888. Edward Bellamy, in his book Looking Backward, described the world of 2000. There is no money. People pay with cardboard cards on which their credit from the state is recorded. The first Diners Club credit card was still 62 years away. Bellamy described the principle of plastic slavery. Half a century before, banks figured out how to profit from us. Prophecy 11. Arthur C. Clarke and GPS. In 1945, science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke wrote a letter to a scientific journal. He proposed hanging satellites in geostationary orbit so that they would hover over one point on Earth. Everyone laughed, and 20 years later, satellites were launched. Today, without Clarke's idea, your navigator wouldn't even find the way to the nearest McDonald's. He invented GPS simply by looking at the sky. Prophecy 12. Mendeleev and a dream for the lazy. He dreamed of the table, cry the lovers of freebies like lie down, sleep, and the Nobel Prize is in your pocket. This is a myth for underachievers. Mendeleev didn't sleep, he worked like crazy. But what really blows your mind is this. He left empty cells in the table. He said, "Here will be elements that we have not yet discovered." And he described the atomic weight and density of gallium, scandium, and germanium decades before they were found in nature. This is like describing the eye color and character of your great-grandchild, who will be born in 50 years. Mendeleev did not see a dream. He saw the source code of matter. Don't confuse genius with magic. Prophecy 13. The Simpsons, a documentary from tomorrow. We used to giggle at the yellow people. Oh, look, Homer screwed up again. Part showed his butt. We consider The Simpsons just satire that shoots in all directions and sometimes accidentally hits. Now shut up and listen. In 2000, in the episode Bart to the Future, Lisa Simpson becomes President of the United States. She sits in the Oval Office and says a phrase to her advisors that today makes your blood run cold. As you know, we inherited an incredible budget crisis from President Trump. In 2000, Donald Trump was just an eccentric reality show host and tabloid figure. The idea of his presidency sounded like a joke from a parallel universe. But 16 years later, the joke was sworn in. And that's not all. Remember the scene from the cartoon where Trump goes down an escalator, waves, and one of his fans drops a poster? In 2015, during the real announcement of Trump's election campaign, he repeated this scene shot for shot. The same escalator, the same gesture, the same angle. The Simpsons writers are not humorists. They are either Masons of the 80th degree or time travelers who are just laughing at our blindness. Prophecy 14. The mouse devours the fox. Disney buys Fox. We stay in Springfield because this place is cursed with knowledge. 1998. The episode When You Dish Upon a Star. Homer tries to sell a script to Alec Baldwin. The camera shows the building of 20th Century Fox Studio, and at the bottom, under the famous logo with spotlights, in small print it says, "A division of Walt Disney Company." In the 90s, this was an absurd joke. Fox and Disney were two giant, equally powerful predators. To imagine that Mickey Mouse would buy Alien and The Simpsons was as real as McDonald's buying Burger King. But in 2017, Disney shelled out $52 billion and actually acquired Fox. Now this joke is a legal fact. The screenwriters predicted the largest monopoly in media history 19 years before the papers were signed. Prophecy 15, Deus Ex and the Vanished Towers. The iconic game Deus Ex was released in June 2000. A grim cyberpunk future, conspiracy theories, implants. The artist who drew the skyline, the panorama of New York for the background, faced a technical problem. Textures took up too much memory. To prevent the game from lagging, they had to cut out some of the buildings. And by a fateful coincidence, they removed the World Trade Center Twin Towers. But players started asking questions. Hey, where's the tower? The game takes place in future New York. Where did they go? To justify this bug, the screenwriters wrote a short explanation in the game's plot. The towers were destroyed as a result of a terrorist attack. The game was released a year and 3 months before 9/11. The texture bug turned into the creepiest coincidence in video game history. We played the future and didn't even notice. Prophecy 16. The Lone Gunman, and the 9/11 script. Do you think the attack on the Twin Towers was something unimaginable, something no one could have conceived? Sit down. March 2001, 6 months before the tragedy. Fox airs the pilot episode of the X-Files spin-off called The Lone Gunman. The plot of the episode. The shadow government of the USA remotely hijacks a passenger Boeing. Their goal is to direct the plane into the World Trade Center building in New York. Why? A quote from the series, "To blame a foreign dictator, unleash a profitable war, and boost arms sales ratings." In the series, the heroes manage to regain control and save the plane at the last second. In reality, there were no heroes. The 9/11 script was shown on national television 6 months before it happened, and we just swallowed it all as another action movie. Prophecy 17, Contagion, a documentary we took for a thriller. Steven Soderbergh's film Contagion was released in 2011. We watched it with popcorn and thought, wow, what a tense plot. In 2020, we realized that we were watching news from the future. Soderbergh didn't guess, he modeled. In the film, the MEV1 virus is born from the contact of a bat and a pig. The Zero patient gets infected in China through a cook who didn't wash his hands. Panic grips the world, borders close, mask regimes, and social distancing are introduced. An online blogger charlatan, Jude Law's character, appears, promoting a fake medicine called Forsythia and shouting that the authorities are hiding the truth. Replace MV1 with COVID-19 and Forsythia with ivermectin or ginger, and you get our reality of 2020 with millimeter accuracy. We lived inside a Hollywood script for 2 whole years. Prophecy 18, Prince and digital slavery. The singer Prince was always considered a bit of a crazy eccentric, but in 1999, receiving an award, he gave a speech that was laughed at then. But today it makes you want to cry. He said, "Don't let them brainwash you. Computers and digital gadgets are not good. They just fill your head with numbers, and that can't be useful." In 99, the internet was a territory of freedom, chats, and funny GIFs. No one saw a threat in it. Prince saw it. He predicted algorithmic slavery. An era when TikTok decides your mood, Facebook knows who you will vote for, and Instagram makes you hate your body. He understood that we would become dopamine addicts on a leash from Silicon Valley when Zuckerberg was still in school. Prophecy 19. The astronomical audacity of Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift, author of Gulliver's Travels. We know him as a satirist who wrote about Lilliputians and giants. Fairy tales, right? In 1726, in the third part of the book, he describes the astronomers of the flying island of Laputa. Swift writes in black and white. They have discovered 2 stars or satellites revolving around Mars. The closest is distant from the center of the planet by a distance equal to 3 of its diameters, and the second by a distance of 5. He even indicated their periods of rotation. What's the problem? The problem is that in 1726, Mars looked like a blurry red spot through a telescope. No optics capable of discerning the tiny stones Phobos and Deimos physically existed. The satellites would be discovered by Asaph Hall only 155 years later in 1877. Swift didn't just guess the number 2, he described the orbits with frightening accuracy when official science didn't even suspect their existence. This is like Shakespeare describing the structure of DNA in Romeo and Juliet. Either Swift was the luckiest fortune teller in the universe, or he had access to knowledge that we lost. Prophecy 20. Robert Boyle's Wish List, 1660. Robert Boyle, the very man from the physics textbook Boyle's Law, compiles a list of tasks for the science of the future, a list of what humanity must achieve. Contemporaries twisted their fingers at their temples. To them, it sounded like a list of spells from Harry Potter. See for yourself what he wrote. First, curing diseases at a distance. Hello, organ transplantation, laser surgery, and radiation therapy. Second, restoration of youth, plastic surgery, Botox, vitamins. Third, the art of flying in the air, aviation. Fourth, finding longitude anywhere. GPS in your pocket. 5, powerful drugs to alter imagination. LSD and antidepressants. Boyle did not dream. He wrote a technical specification for humanity for 300 years to come. And we, like obedient contractors, fulfilled almost every point. Prophecy 21, Aldous Huxley and our cozy prison. We all feared an Orwellian future. 1984, a boot stomping on a face thought police torture. We prepared for pain. But in 1932, Aldous Huxley in Brave New World said, "Relax, you won't need to be beaten, you will give up your freedom yourselves." Huxley described a world where people are controlled not by fear but by pleasure. Endless entertainment, promiscuous sex, and, most importantly, soma, the perfect pill, a gram of which brings happiness and turns off anxiety. Look around, streaming services, one-click pornography, and an antidepressant epidemic. We built Huxley's prison, entered it, locked ourselves in from the inside, and threw away the key, because we're having a blast there. Orwell was wrong. Violence was not needed. Prophecy 22. Leonardo da Vinci, a guest from the future. Leonardo da Vinci is not an artist. He is a time traveler. A man stuck in the 15th century with a 20th century brain. He left blueprints for a tank, an armored carriage that shoots in all directions, blueprints for a helicopter, an aerial screw, blueprints for a parachute, a pyramidal structure that was tested in 2000 and worked perfectly, blueprints for a diving suit and a machine gun. Leonardo's only problem was one thing. In his time, there was no internal combustion engine and light alloys. He had the software, but not the hardware. He was literally trying to run Cyberpunk 2077 on wooden boards. Prophecy 23. Roger Ebert kills video rental. In 1987, videotapes were the kings of the world. Video rental stores were on every corner. In an interview with Omni magazine, film critic Roger Ebert made a prophetic statement. In the future, we will have high-resolution wall-to-wall televisions, and we will order movies through a push-button device choosing from a giant library. We will pay for viewing and watch movies at home. Blockbuster owners then laughed. Who would give up a trip to the video store? 20 years later, Netflix and streaming services destroyed the rental industry root and branch. Ebert described the death of an entire business model when it was at its peak of power. Prophecy 24. Nikola Tesla and the world without wires. Tesla was called insane for his love of pigeons, but his ideas about wireless energy were chillingly accurate. He claimed that energy could be transmitted through the earth and air without cables. The entire earth will turn into a giant brain, he said. Today, when you place your smartphone on a wireless charging station or connect to Wi-Fi for wireless data transfer, you are using scraps of technologies that Tesla was shouting about 100 years ago. We are only now beginning to understand how right he was. We are moving towards a world without wires, towards Tesla's world. Prophecy 25. H.G. Wells gives a grenade to a monkey. In 1914, H.G. Wells wrote the novel The World Set Free. In it, he describes a future war and for the first time in history, uses the term atomic bomb. He describes its principle, a uranium grenade that explodes and continues to release energy for days, creating a radioactive field. This was fantasy, but the book was read by physicist Leo Szilard in 1932. Inspired by Wells's idea, he patented the nuclear chain reaction. Do you understand? It wasn't science predicting fiction, it was a fantast who gave ideas to scientists. Hey guys, why don't you try to explode an atom? Wells literally put instructions for destroying the world into the hands of physicists. Prophecy 26. Nostradamus and the Great Fire of London. I hate Nostradamus. 99% of his quatrains are murky water in the style of "the snake will bite the eagle in the east," which can be stretched to fit anything. But there is one prophecy that even makes my eye twitch. Quote, "The blood of the just shall be shed in London destroyed by fire in the year 66. September 2nd, 1666, the year 66. The Great Fire of London began. It raged for 3 days, destroyed 13,000 houses and St. Paul's Cathedral. Everything coincided here. The place, London, the event fire, and the year 66. This is the only time the old charlatan hit the bullseye with his eyes closed. Prophecy 27. Algorithms know when you will die. And the final prophecy. It concerns not history, it concerns you personally. In 2012, the Target store chain found itself in the center of a scandal. Their algorithm began sending coupons for baby cribs and diapers to a schoolgirl. The schoolgirl's father caused a scandal. Are you encouraging my daughter to get pregnant? 2 weeks later, it turned out that the daughter was indeed pregnant. The algorithm found out about it before the father simply by analyzing that she started buying unscented lotion and vitamins. We think we have free will, but for big data, you are a predictable bot. Neural networks already know when you will divorce, what you will get sick with, and what you will buy next Friday. Your future has already been predicted, it just hasn't been shown to you in your recommendation feed yet. Do you feel your understanding of reality cracking at the seams? That's normal. Breaking old beliefs is a painful process. We are used to thinking that time is a river flowing only forward. But these 27 prophecies prove that sometimes someone looks at a map of the river from above. Call it mysticism, call it intuition, call it coincidence to calm your frayed nerves. But the fact remains, history was written with spoilers. We were just too blind to read them. Live with it and subscribe to the channel before we predict something else. See you in the future if it, of course, happens the way we think.